Hey everyone, my name is Luuk Warringa. I'm mainly in charge of the unit design aspect for HADES 9. This includes unit balance and special effects. In this episode I want to talk about how I go about designing a new unit for the game. So where do you start this pretty involved and complex process? For this video I'll assume that I'm working with a pre-built model that I need to give weapons, balance and provide special effects for. The first step I take is in Unity. I visually take a good look at the new ship and compare it to the ships already in the fleet or from similar sources such as movies, games and books that I know. This allows me to get a good sense of what scale the ship should have, what its function is, and what loadout it should have, such as weapons, sensors and so forth. Next up, I open up my Excel sheets. In these sheets I keep track of the ships I'm currently working on, so I have everything neatly organized and so I don't have to go into the tools every time I need to look up some data. On this first sheet, I keep track of the various things that need to happen before I consider a ship to be completely finished. This includes setting up the model to function as a unit within the game, its HP, camera shake for when its weapons fire, its death animations, and much more. As you can imagine, this makes the process a pretty lengthy one, so it's good to keep track of every step involved. On the next page I wanted to show, I keep track of all the important stats that I need to know when I'm designing a new fleet. Up here in the top, I keep track of all the numbers that I need to know when designing like the average fleet that uses these units, with the rough percentage of HP and damage that each ship will do. I then go to the list below where I go into more detail. Before I continue, I need to make a quick detour to explain what kinds of units exist in HADES 9. The first is the flagship. The flagship is basically the player's character in space. It functions much like your character in, say, Diablo 3 or World of Warcraft. It has some basic stats, like its class, for example, but it can also be given equipment like weapons, engines, shields, and more. Other than that, there is also the escort ships. Escort ships are basically pre-built ships that you can't really customize, but you can unlock many different kinds of. This is done so we can easily balance the different escort ships you can unlock and give them cool ways to interact with your flagship and with each other. And now back to the Excel sheet. So here in this list, you can see all the components that I'm currently testing on each ship. So for example, this flagship, it will not normally come with these components when you get it in game, but for now for testing, I've given it this loadout. It shows how many of each weapon we have on the ship, what the damage output is for the turret group. So that means that if it's multiple turrets, how many it does in total, its range, its special effect ID that I'm going to make for it, the component name that you will see in the game and in the tool, and its component count and where it is on the ship. So for example, it will have 4 close-in weapon systems, 2 facing forward, 1 left and right. One of those forward is actually facing the rear, but for the tool I have to put it on the front of the ship. At the bottom, you can see the damage output target. That is basically the target I'm shooting for with the ship design. For the flagship, it's currently at minus 12,000, but that's reserved for the strike craft. Once I'm happy with the data I've created here for my new ship, I go into the various tools that we use to make the actual ship for the game. For ship development, I mostly use 2 tools, the ship and component designer. There are some other tools involved as well, but those are minor and I'll leave those for a potential future episode, since they don't have much to add here. First up is the ship designer. In this tool I can create a new unit from the ground up. Here in the top we can name the ship, set a description, and in addition I can set various costs for production such as manpower, resources and time. Also, we can set how many command points it requires when it's built and how many supplies it's able to carry for itself and the fleet as a whole. Here in the bottom right I can set how many slots of each type are available to the ship, such as engines, shields, weapons and holds, with A being the largest kind and E being the smallest. At the moment for testing purposes I only use A, but we will probably use the other sizes later on as well. And then here on the left I can set some secondary features, like its base volatility, which is basically how deadly it is for its environment when it blows up, how likely it is to be affected by critical hits and other effects, how good it is with its engines. For example, a very heavy ship is very bad efficiency-wise with engines compared to a light ship, and how well it is armored. For example, this ship is pretty well armored for the front, but it has basically no armor in the rear or sides. Next is the component tool. This tool is a bit more complex than the ship designer, but it allows us to make really cool and unique components for the game. In the top of this tool I can set the name, description and cost for the component of course, but I can also set how large it is, how volatile, how many you can have in your ship, in your fleet or even in the entire game. This can be used for super rare artifacts or other items from before the fall of mankind. And then here at the bottom of the tool, I can set what the component will actually do. What options are available to me depends largely on what the component type is that I set above. For weapons, for example, this includes damage output, type, accuracy, range, reload times, and more. For other components such as engines, it can include acceleration, deceleration, maximum speeds, and so on. The tool also allows me to set what special effect is used and if the component is something that works automatically or is something that the player has to manually enable or use as an activatable in-game. Once the component's initial version has been completed, I can save it to the server and then design a ship in-game to test it with. As balancing is an ever ongoing situation, I'll be back in this tool many times for each individual component we'll ever make. But for now, let's hop back into Unity and see what special effects we can make. Welcome back to Unity. Now we're gonna work on the special effects part of the ship design. There is a lot of special effects to design for a ship, like the engines, weapons, death animations, and so forth. But that's enough to fill an entire video. So for now, I'm just going to limit myself to one specific effect, the triple dual rocket pods, and we can handle the other special effects in a future video if people are interested in seeing more of that. To set up this testing, I first plugged in everything from this battleship into this testing tool with the turret master and then set the right side of this dreadnought to be the target for the test. So by default, this is what the rocket pod looks like now. There you go. So simple effect, but it looks nice. Let's actually have a bit of a better camera angle for it. There you go. There. The system we use actually allows weapons to impact over the entire side or front or whatever of the ship that you're targeting. So there's not like a preset amount of hit locations. There's not like one hit location here, one hit location there, and one hit location there. Weapons can always impact over the entire length of the ship. Now, because this is a pretty nice looking like rocket barrage, but it can of course be much better. So let's go ahead and make this like a hot pink festival of colors. So first off, because if it's going to be hot pink, let's also make it like a lot more spammy. So there you go. Boom. That's like 100 missiles. That's a lot better already. Let's also make it a bit bigger. Let's not go extreme, but like definitely like, boom. See, those are proper rockets. And then go ahead and change the color. Since the missile trail is blue, I'm first going to change that to like a nice hot green, and then change the missile itself to a hot pink. See, that's already much better. And then of course, as you can see, the impacts are still like a blue, so let's go change that as well. So a nice pink as well. Copy. Of course, if you want to make an actually nice looking effect, this is going to take a much longer, but freelancing an effect for a video is something that's really hard. So we're just going to show off now what you can do, and then you can see me work on some actual stuff later in live streams, for example, or in future videos. So there you go. That is one of the options we can do. Other options are also having the missiles come from all turrets at the same time, from a couple of missiles at the same time. But for example, this is the difference that you get if you set all turrets. It's a bit more organized, but that's boring. So let's turn the loving on. Say we also want to have it all fired in a straight line. Currently, the homing missiles are launched in like a bit of a circular movement to make it like home on the target. But say we don't want to have that. Let's go turn the turn speed to 1. So it has 1 second to turn towards the enemy. And then also set the offset at which it's launched to 0. Because we want to go like straight at him. There you go. It still is a bit like of an angle, but that's because the missile launch tubes are actually on an angle. So you're always going to have a little bit of a thing going on. Other things we can do in the future that are not currently here right now are things like a helix. So they have the missiles like spinning around each other. That should be pretty cool when it's actually finally implemented into the game. We can do camera shakes right now. It's a bit hard to show in this specific video, but I'll show that in the future as well. Camera shake basically means that when you shoot a missile and you're close with the camera to the missile launch, that your camera shakes a little to show you that the launch is very violent. Same goes for impact. Lighting, of course, same thing. This specific scene doesn't support lighting very well, so we'll show that off later as well. But so this is just the rocket pod, but we also have this close-in weapon system, which is basically a bullet spam thing to intercept missiles or damage like light frigates and fighters that come too close. We have a heavy railgun, which are basically massive bullets that get flung through space at like near light speed. We have enormous beam weapons, etc. So lots of variety. We'll be sure to come back to this in the future if you guys are interested. So that's about it for this video. I hope you guys like this look behind the scenes at the special effects system and the ship design process. Let us know what you want to see in the future. Be it more in-depth special effect design, as this was obviously pretty quick and dirty, or if it's like death animations, planetary design, ship balance, or anything else you can think of. If you want to know more about the game, the team, or have any good idea for our next topic, the best way to get in touch with us would be via Discord. We are on there basically all the time, so feel free to join us and ask us anything you want. Again, hope you liked this video and see you again for the next one.